Hi everyone, America is crumbling as a society here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. It's time for a review of this new Krallice album, Psychagogue. Experimental and extreme line Exhaustion that I loved earlier this year apparently was tracked and recorded towards a short amount of time between records, even for a band as historically prolific as Krallice. But I assume this may come down to a willingness to get back into the swing of things, since like many artists out there, COVID did kind of slow down the band's output. The one pandemic record that they did come out with wasn't necessarily their best due to the unique conditions under which it was recorded. Still, Crystalline Exhaustion's return to a true black metal form with an increase in synth work made it, in my opinion, one of Krallice's best records so far. So I was kind of curious to see if Psychagogue here would be a continuation of what we heard on that LP, a new direction of some sort. Now, this project is not a lengthy one at 37 minutes or so, and this LP also sees the band once again building their records not out of shorter pieces compiling into a full-length record, but just kind of, and the styles and aesthetics brought out on each track are a bit of a mixed bag. There's the title track, the intro, which is maybe my least favorite, which is a thunderous and relentless mix of black metal, death metal, and progressive metal. Nothing too groundbreaking for the band stylistically, which isn't inherently bad, especially given all the thrilling riff passages in the first half. With all these winding, reverbed guitar arpeggio passages, which lose direction pretty fast. Yes, there is some very muscular drum work going on in these sections, but this whole portion seems to be just kind of resolved. I get a lot more out of the track Deliberate Fog, which has a much smudgier mix by comparison, but I suppose it does make sense as this is a track in more of an atmospheric black metal style, and I actually think this is one of the better tracks Krallice has put out in this lane in a minute. It's a 9-minute monster, and the consistent blast beats, driving bass, guitar arpeggios, and haunting synthesizers make for a pretty mesmerizing listen. The whole thing, really the best part. It somehow sounds heavier and more enveloping than anything that went on in the first leg. The track overall feels like I'm kind of traveling very quickly through some kind of fucking interdimensional portal. The third track on this thing is of even more epic proportions, with what sounds like a full-on orchestral intro, like some real Game of Thrones shit, with the war drums and the eerie harmonies and the grand arrangements. Now, given the credits of the record, all these sounds are most likely synthesized or put together in a DAW in some way, but they still sound sick. And they also seamlessly transition into these truly hellish classic black metal style blast beats and tremolo guitars, even a chilly little dungeon synth layer hanging there in the mix. The whole thing sounds like it's straight out of the 90s scene in Norway, with old school black metal wretches and all. But now on this Krallice record, executed with a gargantuan sound and the type of tightness, speed, and virtuosity that you could only expect from a band at Krallice's talent level. It's fantastically executed, but also incredibly raw. Now, this is also the longest track on the LP by several minutes, but the band more than justifies this runtime with lots of changes, lots of various passages, and while there is a lot of shifting and evolution going on, each section of the track remains focused, none of the progressions or changes feel disjointed or awkward, and the wintry guitar and synth passages toward the end are a nice mellow finish for the cut too. Then we have an aggressive closer for the LP that sends the whole thing out with a bang. The dizzying prog guitar riffs and leads make a return. That moves on to some very discordant chord progressions that are backed up with really powerful pounding drumming. Weinstein is just like going absolutely mad on the skins. And this cut undergoes quite a progression too, getting more gloomy with chilling synth layers filling the air, and eventually finishing off with these really weepy string section layers, which make for one of the more dramatic finishes of any Krallice album so far. But yeah, overall, even though this was not one of the band's most cohesive, not one of their most robust records lengthwise, I still thought this was a pretty solid one from Krallice. Cool to hear the band continuing to vary their sound up, experiment here and there with adding more layers, presenting mixes and instrumental passages that are heavier, thicker, more dense, more ambitious. As someone who's been following Krallice's work for a while now, it would be fantastic to hear the band continue on this path where they are experimenting with these grand and very large instrumental palettes, and maybe bring that onto a record that has a bit more flow, a bit more follow through, a bit more of a macro picture as what it's going to be thematically or sonically. Feeling a decent 2 strong 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Krallice, forever.